Welcome to Family Law Matters, the podcast presented by the Mealy Firm. Visit www.allfamilylaw.com or call 866-687-8561 to learn more. And now, here's your host.
Hey, welcome in. This is Bill King with another episode of Family Law Matters. And today we're going to talk to you about how to not get in your own way in a family law matter. And I'd love for my colleagues to go around the table and introduce themselves and say hey to the listeners.
Hello, my name is Julie Watkins, and I'm the paralegal manager for the Mealy Firm.
Hello, I am Caitlin Hawker, and I'm an associate attorney in the Marriott office.
My name's Jeff Wilson. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Mealy Firm PC.
All right. Well, welcome back to Julie and Jeff. Thanks for joining us again, and welcome in on your first episode, Caitlin.
Thank you.
So today we're going to jump into how to not get in your own way in a family law matter. And so I really want to talk about what have you seen clients do, or even potential clients when you're having an initial meeting with a potential client, things that they have done that have gotten in their own way to negatively impact their case.
Well, the main thing that comes to my mind is posting on social media and venting on social media about your spouse or your domestic situation, because that is all discoverable and is all admissible in court. So it does become part of the record. So kind of keep that stuff private when you're going through your divorce. Wait until after your divorce to vent about your spouse.
Right. And don't try to be cryptic. Like, don't post these memes or pictures where you think you're being sneaky with some sort of cryptic message, because we'll figure it out, or the other, opposing counsel will figure it out, or a judge will figure it out. But yeah, don't even try to be cryptic. I mean, really just shut your social media down unless it's really celebrating or, putting out there these really great ideas of I'm a good co-parent, hey, here's me and dad and we're at graduation, or here's me and mom and we're,
baking cookies.
Baking cookies. Or I was going to say dropping the kid off for first day of school or something, but outside of that, really, be very hesitant to use social media when you're going through a court case.
Yeah, keeping your personal legal issues off of social media is the main thing. Because one of the first things we do is look at social media for opposing parties. We're going to do a social media dive. We're going to look at what you're posting on Instagram, what they're posting on Facebook, those kind of things, because we're looking for them to mess up and post things that they shouldn't post.
Yeah, don't tweet.
Don't tweet. Or
X or whatever it's called now, All right, so biggest one for you is social media. One of the big ones for me is don't have conversations about litigation in front of the child, especially with the other side, right? Because in a lot of our cases, we have what are called guardian ad litems. And the purpose of a guardian ad litem is to represent the best interest of the child. And that guardian ad litem talks to everybody, including the child. And if the child says, hey, daddy or mommy was yelling at mommy or daddy about going to court, that is really not a good look for you. So be careful about what you say and what you do in front of your child or in front of your children, because that can be a huge, I want to say pothole, but it's even bigger than a pothole. I mean, that could derail your entire case right there. So I don't know. What about you, Caitlin? What things have you seen?
One thing that I've seen is that there's a lot of resentment between the parties a lot of the time, especially if there's a divorce and a custody matter involved. And so I would say to make sure that your goals are aligned with what's best for your child and what's best for your future long term. And so, especially with us when we're working strategically, it may seem that we're not being quote unquote aggressive, but it's actually looking towards the client's long-term goals and for the best interest of the child long term. And so that's why I often will recommend that, my clients seek therapy or for therapy and counseling for the child. And counseling can look like a lot of different things. There's therapists who are specialized in providing care for children specifically, and children in high conflict divorce situations. And a lot of people are not comfortable with the idea of therapy at first, but I've seen really good long-term results, especially with co-parenting, by involving a therapist.
Right. I mean, don't, along those lines, don't be short-sighted, right? Don't look for instant gratification and something that needs to happen now. I mean, there are certain things within a case where you can get relief and some quick results, right? But in terms of thinking about where do I want to be at the end of this case? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? And then if there are children involved, where do I want my relationship with my child to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years? Think through that, because children go through a lot, even if they don't show it. I mean, yes, children are resilient, but they go through a lot in these cases. And so being able to think through the impact of that and to work through that in therapy long term is you're 100% right, is huge in terms of creating and maintaining a healthy relationship with not just, the other parent, but the child long term. Because, I mean, you're going to have graduations and weddings and kids and grandkids. And so don't be short-sighted, think long term. I agree. I mean, that's one of the other things where I see a lot of clients will get in their own way because they want that satisfaction of instant gratification. They want that satisfaction of, gotcha.
Yeah.
So you really, really want to, be thoughtful. Mm-hmm. So, Jeff?
Most of what I see, where I see people get in their own way, is they burn money. And that's really sad because it's their money. And they deposit quite a lot of it with us to carry these cases forward, and then they consume it by sometimes requiring an attorney discussion after every billing run. They don't take advantage of the fact that our invoices are really quite detailed. They provide a very good inventory of what has occurred in the case, and by the way, they can speak to our accounting personnel. There's no charge for that. But by requiring an attorney discussion after every billing, that consumes time, it consumes money, because that is billable time. And I think that that's very counterproductive. And then similarly, and I don't see this necessarily in the accounting and finance arena, but I do see it peripherally, and I hear about it a lot, is that time is spent fighting with opposing parties over things that simply do not matter. If you take the cost of your legal team and apply that towards how much did the collection of Hummel figurines cost, and maybe that's a bad example because those things can be expensive, but
Beanie Babies.
Yeah, Beanie Babies. Right, yeah.
It depends on the Beanie Baby.
Right, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But generally...
So the Princess Diana limited edition Beanie Baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. So let the Beanie Baby go. That I think is very counterproductive to burn money and time on that. And I think it's also just very counterproductive to be just that kind of person that terrorizes your legal team so badly that they spend more time, they spend too much time documenting things to be prepared for that conversation, as opposed to preparing necessarily for what they can take into the courtroom with them. I think that can be an issue, because some clients just become notorious for that call that comes after every billing cycle, and it's not necessary. Our attorneys are well trained, they're professional, and at times you've just got to yes, you're right to question. It is your money, but when you call, I think that it's incumbent upon you to provide information, provide something to the case, as opposed to just continually question the process. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that I see every 2 weeks when we do billing, and I saw it a lot this Wednesday, when we did it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I have something else to add to that, is that I am happy to speak with clients, especially about their bills, because it is their money and I value their time and their financial resources. I think one of the bigger issues too is when we have a client who maybe what I refer to as a little bit more high maintenance. And I am happy to have discussions with them as long as they're fully aware of my billable rate and whether or not there's new information in the case. Because if you are willing to budget and have an hour-long conversation every week, I'm happy to do that. But I need to make sure the client is aware of that so that when he or she gets the bill at the end of 2 weeks, it's not a huge surprise of, oh, I didn't want to talk to you on the phone for 30 minutes, an hour, however long it might be. But those conversations are also incredibly important because I can realign the strategy of the case after having those long conversations and really get a sense of the client's goals through those conversations.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what I was referencing when I said it's sort of incumbent to bring new information with you. You know, if you're going to insist, if you're going to have that conversation, improve the case.
Right.
Don't just try to just get a narrative of it, you know.
Right. Yeah, I think, you know, every person just in general is different in terms of communication. And so I am just like you, Caitlin, I am happy, and we have clients that do this. I'm happy to talk to a client every day. I'm happy to talk to a client once a week. I'm happy to talk to a client once a month. And everybody has a different comfort level on staying up to date and having that communication. It's just a matter of understanding and knowing and everybody being on the same page about, okay, if you want to meet for 30 minutes, you know, every day and go over the status of your case, and that's the comfort level that you need with that, that's great. I'm here for it. We will provide that level of service to whatever, you know, will match that, and that, I don't want to say intensity level, but that level of, you know, here's the comfort that I need. Here's the hand holding that I need to make sure that I can walk through this process with less stress, right? Because we're there to take away stress and not add stress. And so if you need that daily, you know, comfort, that daily communication, that's fine. But, you know, also know that that comes with a price tag, right? And so, and I'm glad you said it, because that kind of helps me jump into a point that I was going to make is being unorganized. So when we are working on cases, a lot of what we work through and a lot of what I see is having to dive into documents, and a lot of time is consumed in organizing the documents to understand the documents. Like, you can send me 100 pages, and if they are organized and labeled and clean, I can jump and move and understand what I'm looking at fairly quickly. But if you send me 100 pages, they're not labeled, they're mixed in together, we're going to have to organize them, we're going to have to, you know, label them. That's going to take a lot more time and cost a lot more money. And so where I can see, you know, to your point, Jeff, money being burned through is where there's some failure to organize, some lack of organization. But again, that goes back to my point, is that is fine. If you have a job in which you don't have a lot of time, in which you're saying, I'm paying you all to do all this for me, we're happy to do that for you, right? Again, it's that different levels of, this is the service that I'm looking for. You know, we've had clients who have said, listen, come over to my job and print out documents for me, because I'm going to make more money not focusing on this task, and it's worth it for me to pay you all to come do it. And then we've had clients who have said, tell me exactly what I need to do in order to organize these into folders and make this as succinct and easily accessible as I can. And then we say, okay, if we're responding to discovery, there's 20 questions, and we're looking for taxes, bank statements, credit card statements, 401k statements. And if you create those 4 folders and put those in chronological order, and you label them 1/1/23, 2/1/23, that is very easy for us to process and go through, and will save the clients a lot of money, because we're not doing that. But again, it's not that we won't, or it's not that we wouldn't. It's just everybody's, you know, level of care and service that they're requiring or wanting is different. So, going back to what I was saying, one of the things that I see where people spend a lot of money or can get in their own way is lack of organization. So, thinking through that and what you can do to be more organized and be more on top of things can certainly help walking into this process or throughout this process. So, anything else? I mean, there's a lot here. Mm-hmm. So,
one of the things that came to mind for me is making sure that the client has the right mindset. Not going into this going, I have to win. I don't look at a divorce as anybody winning. It's coming out with the best outcome for your future, which might not be what you think it is. And having realistic expectations, okay, what is this looking like? And having a serious conversation or inner reflection on yourself going, okay, what do I want my life to look like post-divorce? And it's not a matter of I won or she won or anything like that. It's what's best for the situation. And if there's children, it's what's in the best interest of the children. So getting out of your own mindset of, oh, I've got to win. I've got to win. It's not a win-win situation. It's let's do this as what's the word I'm looking for? Unpainful as possible.
Well, or like looking for vengeance,
mm-hmm.
right? People who go in and they're looking for vengeance and they're like, I've got to, extract everything that I can from them, and they are going to pay for this. And I understand the pain and the hurt and the emotion and the betrayal that can come from facing a divorce case or a custody case or any case that we handle. But where that can really hurt is well, I say where. I mean, that can hurt in almost every aspect that we've already talked about. If all you're thinking about in that mindset is vengeance, you're going to lose sight of posting on social media. You're probably on social media posting about how you're going to get them and what you're going to do to get them. You're probably not careful about what you're going to say in front of the child, and you're saying things either in front of the child or to the child or to your children. And so getting away from that idea of vengeance and thinking more about transformation and how am I going to transform through this process and how am I going to be better. And so I agree 100%. I mean, that mindset, is so important.
And I'd like to add to that too about kind of that vengeance narrative. It burns people out pretty quickly in a divorce proceeding. We can't put an exact end date on when your divorce is going to be. And so in terms of longevity, working through that, you really need to emotionally prepare.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree 100%. If you are stuck in this mindset of vengeance and you don't, it goes back to the whole instant gratification thing. If you don't get it right away, if it doesn't happen immediately, those feelings can eat you alive, and then you burn out, and then you're not able to finish the race.
Yeah. And when your judge, comes out of the courthouse and sees "Surrender Dorothy" written in the sky over Marietta Square, it actually doesn't go in your favor. So I think that persona, that thirst for vengeance just doesn't work in any situation.
Yeah, and even the whole, and I know this is such a popular phrase, but even the whole "fake it till you make it," phrase in these instances don't work, because oftentimes, and I hate to say this, but oftentimes if you are in a divorce case, you're gonna be back in court for one reason or another.
Right.
Modification of custody, modification of child support, modification of alimony, contempt, whatever that may look like. And so this whole notion of fake it till you make it, and then you get done with the divorce, and now you're like, well, now I can say and do whatever I want. Right. That is not true. Right. Like, even after the divorce is done, you want to be very thoughtful and meaningful in how you act, because those things can come back to bite you in a future modification case. Right. So I love that. I mean, mindset. I mean, your mindset. We could talk about, we could have 10 podcasts on mindset. And so thinking through, how do I transform and how do I, get better, also goes back to the whole notion of counseling or therapy and working through those difficult emotions and those feelings to be better, not just for your child, to be better, not just for your co-parent, for the, dad, mom, your former partner, former spouse, whoever that may be, but just to be better for yourself. I mean, to be healthy yourself, mentally and physically healthy for yourself. And so I just, vengeance does not belong in a divorce case. Vengeance does not belong in a custody case. Vengeance does not belong in a case, period. There's a reason it's called justice, or justice for all. It is about justice and not vengeance, right? And so removing that mindset, getting rid of that mindset and switching to a more healthy mindset is really the best thing that you can do for yourself through this process.
What do you guys think? I mean, when we look at the question, how do people get in their own way? How do you feel about the cases where the client abandons the case halfway through? I think what I've seen is I think we do a really good job with our strategy sessions and talking it through. I think if a person is just patently not where they should be in the case in seeking a divorce, I think we help them see that, so they don't get into a divorce if they really don't need one. So I think we're good about that. But I think as professionals and business people, we're not as good about catching people who are just making a horrible mistake by abandoning the divorce, because we want to respect their decisions. All right. So there's no second voice to say, no, you're going to end up probably back in the same position within 2 years. And what I've seen is that they do. That's my opinion, just because of the what I see in the mass data. Do you encounter that also, that frequently that's a mistake?
I don't know if it's necessarily a mistake. I will say that when we are going through cases, so there's two things that come to mind. One is people change their minds often, and they're like, I don't want to go through this. I don't want to do this anymore. And in those situations, I try to have what I call like a come to Jesus moment with them. And I'm like, hey, if you truly want to let this go or dismiss this case, I will respect your opinion, because at the end of the day, you're the client, and I'm going to respect that decision. But what I try to do is provide them thoughtful paths that their lives could go down based on my experience and what I've seen in the past. So going back to, you could be back in in a year or two, and you've paid $10,000, and you're gonna start over and pay another $10,000 in 6 months or a year. Mm-hmm. The other thought that I have is a little less of, I've had a change of heart, but it's more of getting $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 into a case, following our strategy, utilizing our services, and then because something didn't happen the way they thought it should, they suddenly give up and they don't want to move forward, or they don't want to continue to take our advice. And so that's where I can see it's another way in which a client can get, in their own way, is, it sort of goes back to that instant gratification thing, but it's also continuing to keep the faith and continuing to have trust, because we always talk about this. The key to family law is being flexible. Not everything is going to happen the exact way that you think it will. And even for us, when we say, okay, here's how we see your case going, or here's where we think it's going to go, there are always going to be road bumps and twists and turns and things that don't happen exactly the way that we initially think it does, because, out of nowhere, here's a fact that we weren't expecting, or out of nowhere, they hire an attorney who is more litigious than we thought, they would be. Out of nowhere, they switch from the regular judge to a senior judge. So now you have a different judge on the matter who may handle it a different way. And so you've got to readjust or change your strategy. And so even though from their perspective, things aren't going exactly how we discussed to begin with. These are things that we see day in and day out, and we have to navigate day in and day out. And so maintaining that trust, keeping that faith, understanding that, you know, I can act like Neo in the Matrix and dodge some bullets, right? And figure out how to navigate this and get past these hurdles and these bumps and move forward with I won't say a new strategy, but a shift in strategy to adjust and address those new hurdles or those new bumps. And what I see happen is some, not all, I say some clients will give up at that point, and they'll say, you know what, and they'll throw their hands up in the air and say, this isn't going how I thought it would go. And I'm just going to go do this on my own. I'm not going to pay you guys anymore. Or I give up, just give them whatever they want. I don't care anymore. And that is where I would, I continue to work and try to help the client see and have, again, another try to come to Jesus talk, but obviously I'm here saying this because that doesn't always work.
The other thing I was going to say is also making sure the clients have realistic expectations. How long is this divorce going to take? Well, my friend got divorced in 3 months. Well, no divorce is the same as anybody else's. So having realistic expectations and relaying them to the client is huge, because for the most part, for most of our clients, this is their first divorce, and we're helping them through a difficult situation that they've never thought they would find themselves in. For us, we do divorces every day. So we kind of have a feeling of how things are going to flow. So relaying those expectations to the client and making sure they understand, this could be over if we can settle, but if not, then it's going to be, several months or longer that this is going to be taking up your time. So setting those realistic expectations of, I thought we were just, it's not like TV.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when we talk about mindset, it seems like if you're contemplating going through this process, it would be good. You'd be doing yourself a favor if you asked, am I willing to do this? Am I willing to go through this? If it's twice as hard as I thought it was going to be, if I realized that, if I really understood that the hair club for men commercials were a lie, I'm still going to look like a grocery store manager when I'm divorced. It's everything's not going to change overnight with this divorce. Is it still worth it to you? What are your motivations? Do you have the right motivations for this? And if you can answer that question, correctly, yes, I would do this if it was twice as hard as I think it's going to be. I think you're really in a good place to go forward, but you need to settle it out. I mean, we've talked about this in previous episodes. It's the commitment. Once you've made this commitment, you need to do a lot of things mentally and emotionally and financially. And if it's worth it to you, it's very worth it to you. And so when I see somebody withdraw from a case, I'm concerned that they've done a lot of work and at some point they're going to have to do it over again.
Yeah.
And I have similar concerns related to that too, but there's ways that we can, speed up or slow down a case in line with the client's goals. And a great opportunity for that is at mediation. Mediation, for those who are unfamiliar, it's usually required in some counties. Sometimes it's not, but it is a way to settle the case. You negotiate with a mediator who's either appointed by the court, or you decide with your attorney and opposing counsel. And so mediation is a great time to be flexible with the outcome of your case, specifically in divorce cases. I had a great mediator once tell me that men in divorce cases specifically hate the 2 A's, which are alimony and attorney's fees. And so I've had mediations where he said, okay, let's rephrase how you're going to get this quote unquote alimony. And so instead of asking for alimony specifically, we'll ask for 60% of the equity in the home instead of alimony. It's the exact same dollar price, but if you're dealing with someone who is motivated by revenge, who, cannot see the forest through the trees, that's who's on the other side, then repackaging those goals works very well for clients.
Yeah, and if they can't see that, they're getting in their own way.
Right.
So, well, thank you all for listening today. and we look forward to talking to you in our next podcast. And if you'd like to check us out and find more out about the firm, go to www.allfamilylaw.com. Thanks.